everybody for being here. In particular, thank you, Dr. Paul and Mr. Kumar, for being with us. And it's such a privilege to be here with, I think, two people who are pushing us as a country, I think, to think of the systems that interact with our youngest children and their caregivers in a very holistic way, from sort of how they interact with the health system, the medical system, education, social welfare, and ICDS, right, the Anganwadi system. And we'll touch on many of these things in this short conversation. But I just wanted to start, sir, by maybe narrowing our focus a little bit. So, we know that sort of the Anganwadis were first established in 1975, which means we're now at 49 years. It must have been a radical idea when it first came to focus so much on malnutrition and on the needs of our youngest children. So what would you say, I mean, of course we hear a lot about the challenges, but what would you say are really the successes of this policy in the last 49 years? What have we been able to achieve through it?
Thank you. I'm very pleased and honored to be here. And I'm very glad that Sampath has also joined. He's a champion and a doer. And thank you for the good work that Rocket Learning and all of you are doing in this fraternity. Well, indeed, as a medical student, I remember when ICDS was conceptualized, because it followed a pilot done by AIIMS Department of Gastroenterology. Dr. B.N. Tandon had led that pilot. We were moving from the previous Balwadi related initiative, which was very simple and relatively less ambitious, as you would expect. And this came up, and for a number of years, there was annual convening at AIIMS, and we from pediatrics were taking part in one way or the other. So if you say history-wise, it goes back to that time. Yes, if you look at the design of ICDS, it continues to be relevant even to the day. We have done well in some aspects. We could do much more in some others. And the time has come to reposition, re-energize, and reimagine this whole initiative. As you may also appreciate, ICDS was also recognized, globally as a very important program, perhaps the biggest program even at that time on nutrition, and Lancet and others. So there is a recognition. If you go back in these years, we should be very proud that country could create such a large infrastructure, 14 lakh Anganwadi, and as many as workers and then helper, and monthly activities take place, daily activities take place. It has influence immunization program. If you are close to 100% saturation with childhood vaccination, Anganwadi workers have played a role. If you are looking at control in diarrheal disease in children, it's dramatically down in terms of even its occurrence, but certainly diarrheal disease related mortality has so much significantly come down. Pneumonia mortalities are down. This team has done phenomenal work. They were part and parcel, absolutely phenomenal work in very limited, resources and difficult work, because to reach out to everybody and so on. Notwithstanding also the fact, the nutrition supplement program, confidence that people have that this extra top-up is available for nutrition, for pregnant women, for children. It's been, we need to, this is a golden history that we should write these 50 years. But let me be a little more specific before I hand you back. The hardcore nutrition outcomes have also changed. Stunting between 1990 and 2021 has come down by 23% nationally. So it's not that the overall big picture is not changing. We would have liked this to change faster, but there are imperatives of epigenetics and so on. We can talk more about that. But the fact remains that between 1990 and the last NFHS 5, if you see, there is a reduction of 23% from about 58, I think, stunting is down to 35. So that also is happening. Obviously, nutrition doesn't change with only one program, but it carries, nutrition and health and care of the mother holistically. It has played a very important role. Overall development has played a role. Sanitation has played a role. But the fact remains that the program has been responsible for significant changes on the health and nutrition scene of our great nation. But we now look forward to taking it to next level of energy, next level of intensity during the Amrit Kal, in particular in the next 5 to 10 years, to take nation and nation's children and adolescent girls and women to that level of health that the developed nations aspire for. And we don't have to wait for 2047. We should now work faster because we have more resources, more motivation, more willpower, and we have a great leader who is guiding us to do all this.
Thank you, sir, for those inspiring words. I think we often focus too much on the negatives and we forget what has already been accomplished. So thank you for that, sir. Before, I think we'll get to maybe some of the challenges as well with Sampath, sir. But I was wondering if we could actually see an example of of these services coming together in a beautiful way. We have a video on sort of the Meghalaya example, which the Meghalaya ECD, the Early Childhood Development Mission, has really brought together many of the strands that Dr. Paul was talking about. So maybe we could play that. Okay, so while that gets lined up, Sampath sir, could you talk a little bit about what were the challenges you saw as you stepped into this role, and how did you go about taking this whole society, whole government approach to the problem?
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate Rocket Learning for organizing this UDAN program. This is basically, it's like a kind of an advocacy for ECD. I also very happy to be with Dr. V.K. Paul sir. In fact, he was honorable member Niti Aayog, who has been spearheading this ECD at a national level through Niti Aayog. So I work very closely with him. So I just want to tell you, like before, I think we have a video that in fact again asked by our Dr. V.K. Paul sir to capture everything, just to tell what is that we have been doing differently. So coming to the question that you asked, Namya, there is essentially in Meghalaya, we have a lot of intent is there. We have a strong intent to really take the state as a developed state. So what does it mean, to take the So we are trying to explore what are the best ways, how actually we can take it as a developed state. Currently, if you look at the SDG parameters, we stand number 24, in terms of indicators. So when we have this intention, why I'm saying is that that is very important. When you have that one, then actually you can really mobilize the entire political supportability and entire resources in a different way. So when we started looking at this science of early childhood as a tremendous power, to achieve this one. So we found so many things, but we found this is something, a piece of science of early childhood development, which actually where you are, for every dollar that you invest, almost like a 17, times that you are going to achieve the result. So it's if there is anyone who has any sense in terms of, the public investments, I think that this is the best public investment anyone can make, because you are getting a 17 times is that kind of a return on in your investment that you are getting. So we could able to, in fact, take this idea to the Chief Minister, and then we brought this in 2020 as part of the state budget that we will start the ECD mission by leveraging the science of early childhood development. And for that, what we have done was, there is already, in fact, I was listening to the previous speakers, in fact, CEO Niti Aayog and also Mr. Ashish, so who they were mentioning about how to really get one extra, educator within the Anganwadi center. So these are the things actually we have been, ideating, and we are using a very interesting framework called problem-driven iterative adaptation approach to really find different solutions. So one of the things what we found is that there is already, huge social capital exists in the country in the form of women self-help groups. The women self-help groups, in fact, I'll give an example of Meghalaya. 5 years ago, we didn't have any self-help groups. Today, every house, a young woman is part of a women's self-help group. And these young women are, most of them are graduates. And they in fact, they can be the best ECD educators now in the state. So what we have been doing is that in the state, we are leveraging the existing programs like this, like a National Rural Livelihoods Mission, which is across, it's there everywhere. We're just like leveraging those existing social capital. And also, building the existing network, like, we have different departments working in the ECD space, like whether it's a health department, WCD department. So we are also trying to bring that synergy, the kind of a sense of purpose, how actually we can really build that entire value. So when you asked me, like, we have that intent. We really wanted to, use this, entire science of early childhood development to really bring that value to the state. So today, our vision is that, like, we are transforming all the Anganwadi centers into the ECD centers, early childhood development centers. And we are leveraging the existing money available with the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act to upgrade these Anganwadi centers, because we have a huge money in National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So we are leveraging that money. We also have, signed a, recently we signed a loan with ADB, for additional funding, to really upgrade these Anganwadi centers as ECD centers. Besides that, we're also going to train this, as I said, like in fact, I was listening to earlier speakers. In fact, our idea also was like that. We do not actually wanted to create a cadre. We really wanted to create as a movement. So every family, in fact, most of the children, they spent a lot of time within the family and within the community. It is not only that, like, we, in the center, maximum 6 hours the children are spent. But, like, if you look at 2/3 of their time is actually are, in fact, it's spent at home and the community. So we need to really build that, strength at a community level. So we wanted to have this entire ECD educators, a pool of ECD educators in the, at the village. So currently, we are actually having this ECD educators from self-help groups, and who are actually drawn, who are actually working at the center, and also who are working at the community level. So that's why we are actually bringing that entire, model. It's essentially using existing large-scale public programs and bringing that sense of purpose and, about the ECD, to really achieve these results. I think maybe I've answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that sort of really leads us into what I was going to ask Dr. Paul next, which is, sir, you alluded to the fact that we need to reimagine and revitalize, the scope of the services, the scope of the delivery of ICDS. So what would be, the big ideas in your mind? Maybe the top 3, and sort of course, Sampath sir has already introduced a few, so maybe, some, maybe even beyond that.
So top 3, but I'll perhaps be speaking a little bit unconventionally. So why I say that? Because and then I'll try to elaborate very briefly. One is, finding innovative ways of improving the infrastructure and its outreach and connect with the community, which is done contextually, differently in different places, as Meghalaya has tried to do. So that's the first part. So using Manrega funds, others can also do. Utilizing SSGs, we all should do. Utilizing, the Panchayati Raj institutions in their own way to create creches along with Anganwadi or otherwise. So I think there's an innovative space which should be occupied for improving the services imparted directly or indirectly by the ICDS, because everything cannot necessarily be loaded onto that. These are the other resources, and they are there to be utilized. Some things would come from health, for example, and why not? For example, if anemia program is to be loaded, well, Anganwadis have a role because children come there, but then those resources will come from health side. If you use Anganwadi for health checkup under RBSK and anemia screening for children, etc., resources will come. So it's also a platform, and therefore platform deserves inputs directly budgeted, but also these additional resources and connections that can be. And there should be discussion on it. We should be, long list of this, and then see what fits in where. And this is all contextual. This could vary. There are common strands, but it could vary among people. My second point, on top of my head, is that we would like to see Anganwadi system, the ICDS system, and the new generation Anganwadi activities to really focus on behavioral change. We are doing it, but we need to do it much more. Let me give examples. In feeding, the deficit of feeding, food not being available, is only a negligible problem, if at all. Perhaps it is none. Today, food is available in households. Food is being supplied through the support from NFSA. It's enough for the families, then they have their own resources. So we are not living in a time where food is an issue. But when children do not get the food, it's about us as families not being aware, first and foremost, that food is to be introduced, semi-solid food is to be introduced at 6 months, and then it is to be built up so that at 1 year, that may be news to you, child, 1 year or 12, 14-month child eats and should eat half of what you and I eat. ये दोबारा रिपीट करूं मैं? ये बिहेवियर की बात है. 12 महीने 14 महीने के बच्चे की खुराक जो होती है, खाना, दिन में खाना चाहिए, वो मैं और आप जो खाते हैं उसका आधा होता है. हम ये नहीं रियलाइज करते. अवेयरनेस नहीं है. फिर खिलाने की हिम्मत चाहिए. वो तो 3 बारी में नहीं खाएगा, वो तो 6 बारी में खाएगा. फिर एफर्ट है. फिर उसको खाने को और कैसे अच्छा कर सकते हैं कि उसमें एनर्जी डालें, कि थोड़े अमाउंट में घी डालें, मक्खन डालें तो अंदर जा सकता है ज़्यादा. तो कुछ किसी हद तक बिहेवियर का, किसी ने बहुत हद तक बिहेवियर का एक इशू है. क्योंकि हम देखते हैं कि 6 to 8 मंथ्स में जब बच्चों को खाना शुरू, मैं एक ही एग्जांपल ले रहा हूँ बिहेवियर के ऊपर, फिर और भी ले सकते हैं. शुरू करते ही नहीं हैं हम डिले करते हैं. सिर्फ 45% में ही दे पाते हैं. फिर देते हैं तो पूरा नहीं देते. आप घर में जाके जो भी जानते हैं बच्चों को, 12, 14, 18 साल के बच्चों को देखो कितना खाना खाते हैं. हमें डर लगता है कितना खाते हैं कि नहीं, फिर मेहनत नहीं करी जा पाती. तो ये बदलना होगा, क्योंकि नहीं तो उसका असर तो कहीं हो रहा है. जब मैं कह रहा हूँ कि न्यूट्रिशन की नीड इतनी है एज अ डॉक्टर, एज NIN, एज ICMR हम कह रहे हैं, तो फिर वो बच्चे को देना है उसी खाने से, घर में जो बनता है उसी खाने को ही परोसा जाता है. सारे गुण हैं उसमें, वही राइस, वही घी, वही गेहूँ, वही दाल, वही गुड़, वही घर का तेल, वही घर का आलू, वही केला. खाना वही है, खाने में कोई अलग बात नहीं है. हमें इस तरह की चीज़ों को स्प्रेड करके कॉन्फिडेंस देना है कि इसके ऊपर फोकस किया जाए. ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग की बात करें अगर, तो पहले 6 महीने में सिर्फ ब्रेस्ट फीडिंग होगी. लेकिन हम कहाँ फॉल्टर करते हैं? शायद बड़े बच्चों में इतना नहीं, छोटे बच्चों को चूक जाते हैं. वो पीता नहीं है, छूट जाता है, थक जाता है, कहीं कमी रह जाती है. हमारे छोटे बच्चों के ऊपर फोकस ज़्यादा होना चाहिए. वो एक बिहेवियर का भी इशू है, हेल्थ सिस्टम का भी इशू है, क्योंकि ये बच्चा तो पहले ही मैम सैम सब चला हुआ है और उसके और भी ज़रूरत है उसको खुराक की. तो लो बर्थ वेट फीडिंग, कैंगरू मदर केयर, ये फीडिंग का हिस्सा है. इसमें बिहेवियर की बात है. हर घर में ये होना है जहाँ ये बच्चे हैं. खाने को टाइम पे फिर सेमी सॉलिड फूड लाना, जैसे मैंने कहा है. ग्रोथ मॉनिटरिंग को मेरे को ग्रीन में रखना है. बिहेवियर उसमें सरकार तो खाना भी प्रदान कर रही है, गाइडेंस भी दे रही है। तो बिहेवियर चेंज के ऊपर जैसे स्वच्छ भारत में हुआ या हर घर नल जल में आ रहा है, मैं चाहूँगा कि बिहेवियर चेंज की मूवमेंट हो बहुत बड़े स्केल पे। न्यूट्रिशन इज़ नॉट एन इनएडिक्वेट न्यूट्रिशन इशू, न्यूट्रिशन इज़ अ बिहेवियर इशू। हमने ये चेंज करके भी दिखाया। डायरियल डिजीज़ में ORS अब सबको पता है, किसको नहीं पता? टीके के बारे में सबको पता है, चाहे वो कोविड का टीका हो, चाहे वो DPT BCG हो। तो बिहेवियर बदले जा सकते हैं, बिहेवियर के ऊपर हमें ये काम करना होगा। ये मेरा सेकंड सजेशन है। इसको कैसे फिट करेंगे, हम सब एक दूसरे से सीख के करेंगे, लेकिन क्लियर होना चाहिए कि क्या होना है बच्चे को। बच्चे को टीका लगना है तो कैसे भी पहुंचेंगे, टीका लगेगा। जब कोरोना में टीके लगने थे तो रास्ता खुल गया ना, पहुंच गए ना हर जगह पे। तो जब पता है कि ये करना ज़रूरी है तो बिहेवियर बदलेगा और हम सब एज अ नेशन हम राइज करें। थर्ड पॉइंट है क्लियरली कि अर्ली चाइल्डहुड डेवलपमेंट पे फोकस होना चाहिए। फ्रॉम द वेरी बिगनिंग ICDS हैड नॉन फॉर्मल एजुकेशन एज अ पार्ट। बच्चे आएंगे, उनको सिखाएंगे, बिठाएंगे, एजुकेशन होगी, उस पर मेहनत हुई। 3 to 6 वालों पे ऊपर अभी भी है और ज़्यादा हो सकती है। मॉडर्न मेथड्स हम समझते हैं, मॉडर्न टेक्निक्स हमें ज़्यादा समझ आती हैं, हम टूल्स देंगे और भी बढ़ेगा। लेकिन जो 6 महीने 0 to 3 जिसको हम कहते हैं, जो बच्चे घरों में हैं, उनके भी ब्रेन डेवलपमेंट के लिए, चाइल्डहुड डेवलपमेंट के लिए हमें मेहनत करनी होगी। और वो मेहनत हम पेरेंट्स के साथ मिलकर ही कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि ये बच्चे तो पैदल चल के आंगनवाड़ी में नहीं आते, महीने में एक बार ही आते हैं, माँ के साथ आते हैं, रोज़ तो अभी नहीं आ पाने का सिस्टम बना पाए हैं। तो इन बच्चों को पेरेंट्स के साथ मिल के हमें फैसिलिटेट करना है कि वो बच्चे जैसे संपन्न घरों में एक एक्टिविटी में हिस्सा लेते हैं, बातचीत में हिस्सा लेते हैं, खेल में हिस्सा लेते हैं, टॉयज़ के साथ बात करते हैं, रंग दिखाए जाते हैं, बाहर ले जाया जाता है, माँ भी खेलता है, फादर भी खेलते हैं, ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स, ऐसा ही हर घर में होना चाहिए। और उसमें मदद जो करी जा सकती है प्रोग्राम से, वो टूल्स दिए जा सकते हैं, बताया जा सकता है ऐसे किया जाए। और भी मदद तरह तरह से करी जा सकती है कि जाके खिलौने बनाने में मदद करें और याद दिला दें कि अब बच्चा जब 9 महीने का हो गया, अब इसको हम इस तरह की बात करते हैं तो इसको अच्छा और लगेगा। घर हाथ में कब चीज़ देनी है, उससे पहले उसको कैसे दिखाना है, रंग कब दिखाना है। तो ये सब चीज़ों के पीछे जो साइंस है, सिंपल चीज़ें हैं और इंट्यूटिवली भी होती हैं, कल्चर में भी होती हैं, हर घर ये करता ही है। इसमें हमें मदद करनी है, क्योंकि 3 साल तक ब्रेन जो है वो 85% 90% बन जाता है। हम जब आंगनवाड़ी में नॉर्मल तरीके से आ रहे हैं तो वो हमारे पास 10% का मार्जिन है। पहले की तैयारी घर में हो रही है। ये मेहनत जो है अब हम और ज़्यादा करेंगे। तो फोकस ऑन इम्प्रूविंग the system in innovative ways, more resources, but connection with other opportunities. Number 2, in a big way, behavior change. और डेवलपमेंट में भी बिहेवियर की बात है। जो घर में होना वो बिहेवियर ही है कि ऐसा माहौल बने। मुझे बताया गया डॉक्टर संपत ने कि जब सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स के द्वारा कहते हैं कि हम दिमाग बच्चे का स्ट्रॉन्ग करने के लिए ये काम करना चाहिए, तो सारे जग जाते हैं। मुझे बताया गया है कि वार्धा में जो प्रोग्राम है, महाराष्ट्र में प्रोग्राम है, जब ये बात करते हैं हम बच्चों के दिमाग में ताकत ला रहे हैं, दिमाग स्ट्रांग हो रहा है, शार्प बनेंगे बच्चे, स्मार्ट बनेंगे, पढ़ाई करेंगे, तो कम्युनिटी और तरीके से जुड़ती है। तो ये भी बिहेवियर है। तो ये बात अब उजागर करनी होगी, क्योंकि हमारे बच्चे ताकत न्यूट्रिशन की भी होनी चाहिए, ग्रोथ भी होनी चाहिए, लेकिन यहाँ भी हमने स्मार्टेस्ट बच्चे बनाने। हमारे इससे स्मार्ट कोई और नहीं हो सकता। कैसे हम मुकाबला करेंगे? विकसित भारत बनेंगे तो टॉप पे जाना है ना, तो बच्चे ही तो स्मार्ट होंगे तभी तो आएगा। शार्प, स्मार्ट, अक्लमंद, साइको सोशल स्किल्स, कोग्निटिव स्किल्स, IQ, वाणी, ये सब कुछ लाना है। तो ये मैं कहूँगा कि 3 मुद्दों पे काम होना चाहिए। और भी कई डायमेंशंस हैं, लेकिन अगर हम आगे जाते हुए ICDS प्रोग्राम को इस्तेमाल करते हुए इस तरह से सोचें और भी सोचें, तो ये बहुत टाइम लगेगा। थैंक यू।
Hello. Okay. So actually, in our work with almost 100,000 Anganwadi workers across 9 states, so we've also seen that behavior change, as you're saying, is that key component. We actually have a talk coming up. We have a whole framework from, as you're saying, that aspiration that your child has to reach these milestones by this age, to intent down to behavior. So we've really identified an index very scientifically of how behavior change happens and how we can support that in communities. So there's also a poster for everybody who hasn't seen these yet. Please do come look at the poster presentations also during the breaks. Sampath sir, coming back to you, but I'm wondering if before that we can play the video, which will give, I think, worth 1,000 words to really see what is happening today.
When we see a baby looking around or a child playing, we may not assume them to be learning, but being the keen observers that they are, the environment they are exposed to provides them with valuable learnings that last a lifetime. Scientists have found that 90% of brain growth happens in the first 5 years. Positive experiences in early childhood, such as healthy relationship with parents, play-based activities, and lower exposure to stress, have been seen to significantly improve long-term outcomes. Nobel Prize winner in economics, J.J. Heckman's Preschool study has shown that the more we invest in early ages, the more we gain in later years. They perform better in school, have good mental health, forge stronger relationships, earn more as adults, and live an overall happy life. Meghalaya grapples with challenges to human development due to high fertility rate, low learning outcomes, and multidimensional poverty, coupled with elevated maternal and infant mortality rates, leading to compromised cognitive and physical development of a child. The state is working towards converting its challenges into opportunities through the launch and implementation of the Early Childhood Development Mission. The aim is to build a strong cognitive capital through a holistic development of children from conception to 8 years. This is part of Meghalaya's life cycle approach to human development, which aims to provide support to individuals at every stage of life. Meghalaya's Early Childhood Development Mission is part of a larger initiative, the State Capability Enhancement Project, SCEP, which seeks to strengthen state capacity to solve complex developmental challenges. ECD is an integrated mission with health, education, social welfare, and community and rural development departments working in tandem with each other, bearing in mind the interconnectedness of the challenge. ECD aims for holistic child development through focus on healthy nutrition, opportunities for early learning, safety and security, responsive caregiving, good health, and parental well-being. The ongoing ECD interventions is leveraging Meghalaya's community institutions, including village organizations, comprising women-led self-help groups, village health councils, village employment councils, and frontline workers, including Anganwadi workers, Anganwadi helpers, ASHA, and preschool teachers. Faith-based institutions are also being tapped to percolate the importance of ECD to the communities. ECD is also leveraging existing central and state schemes like ICDS, NRLM, and MNREGA. ECD interventions focus on 3 key domains: family and home, at the center, and at the community level. At home, it is critical that parents and caregivers are able to provide positive parenting. This involves partaking in simple activities with the child, such as serve and return, which is a back and forth interaction between parents or caregivers and the child. Training and coaching has been given on this through joint home visits, parent circle meetings, including father circle meetings and community events. This is being done by SHGs as ECD educators, Anganwadi workers, and ASHAs. At Anganwadi and preschools, all Anganwadi centers will be upgraded to function as holistic ECD centers. Children learn better through play rather than memorization or rote learning. As such, all Anganwadi workers and preschool teachers are being trained on a play-based pedagogy to improve cognitive development of children. ECD volunteers from the women-led SHG network have been identified and are being trained to support activities at the ECD center. ECD centers are envisioned to become vibrant hubs of the community where parents, caregivers, and children gather to participate in fun activities and where they learn through play. It takes a village to raise a child. ECD interventions at the community is training community leaders and institutions such as the VO and the VHCs to hold community events and discussions on the importance of early childhood development. The mission is currently being rolled out across the state. Block conventions and trainings are being conducted for the community leaders and frontline workers on the core concepts of early childhood development, which is this, that our brains are made up of neurons that connects different parts of the brain and help carry information around. These connections are formed rapidly during the early years of a child's life. A healthy brain has a dense network of connections, but an unhealthy brain does not. Through the live demonstrations of the brain wiring game, participants are learning about the science of brain development. Participants are also learning about the importance of play in learning. They are also getting hands-on experience on how to facilitate play-based learning through field demonstrations. They are being pushed to think out of the box, and in the process, they learn about the importance of play to build creativity, conceptual thinking, and intelligence. A decentralized approach is being adopted for furthering the ECD mission, where block human development teams comprising members from all related departments are being constituted across the state. Partnerships with research institutions and technical experts are being forged to further the ECD mission objectives, thereby enhancing ownerships at all level and effectiveness. The Meghalaya ECD mission is a flagship program aimed at improving health, education, and economic outcomes by focusing on the early childhood phase of growth. By investing in cognitive capital, the state strives for a brighter future because a healthy, educated, and empowered population can become a driver of growth and well-being not only for the state but the nation as a whole.
Thank you, Sampath, for sharing that with us. I think it brings really this idea that must travel outside of Meghalaya as well. Sir, you mentioned, of course, you both mentioned some innovative ways to finance the additional budget that will be required. So UNESCO actually has a global goal that the spending on children below 6 must be at least 10% of school spending by 2030. So I wanted to invite both of you perhaps to talk about I'd love to hear from you, sir, about the ADB project as well. What are the goals? How did that come about? And sort of what are the areas that you're investing in through that?
So I wanted to tell you, Meghalaya is number one state in the country in terms of the budget spending on healthcare. We spend about 8.6% of the state budget on healthcare. So this has been, why I wanted to say this one is that there is a need for, to have such kind of a commitment. People also, in fact, you need to build the political supportability. And if we have been doing that experiment, when we invest in human capital, because this is what we also understood that we really have to invest in human capital. There is one important insight why we need to invest in early childhood development. You have seen the video basically because one is that we are following a life cycle model where if you the foundation is the ECD. If you invest in the 0 to 8 years, the outcomes at later point of a time will be huge. That has been shown through research, and a lot of RCTs have been done there. And in fact, my previous speakers also have spoken about how actually that has been done in some piloted in Tamil Nadu with extra educator and all that. So in fact, that is something that we found it's a very, very important. So coming back to the Meghalaya, we are a landlocked state. We don't have, what we have is natural resources and human resources. We have huge fertility rate, so a lot of children. So we are not looking at it as a problem. Okay, how actually we can convert these children into a beautiful cognitive capital. So the state is working on those lines, so that's why actually we could able to bring more and more resources towards investing on that particular aspect. But the idea is that it's actually we are a young nation. If we really invest at a younger age, especially the early childhood period, maybe second window of opportunity is the adolescent period. Only these two opportunities. So later, if you wanted to skill, you had to take a lot of effort to skill the adult population. So the best way is that you really catch at a very young age, And even when the children is at the mother's womb, because 50% of the brain of a child develops when the child is, already, when the child comes out of a mother's womb. So a lot of focus that what we have been trying to give is that, making this entire lifespan into 4 periods. One, 25% of weightage we are giving to the pregnancy period. So how actually mothers are taken care of. In fact, we have one program called Chief Minister's Safe Motherhood Scheme, where we provide a lot of support for the pregnant women, even during the pregnancy period. In fact, because we are very, very dispersed, very challenging terrain, geographical terrain, what we have. So in that geographical terrain, how actually we are able to provide more support to the mothers so that they will have a safe delivery. And even during the pregnancy period, how the parental family relation should be. There should not even be altercations within the family members. In fact, there should not be even how the parents are talking before the child, So there is a concept called toxic stress, and how actually we should not allow children to get into the toxic stress. That's one important point. And second is that and we are also involving faith-based organizations, because it should be a movement. In fact, it should be a movement. In fact, we are also saying we have about 85% of the population is the Christian population. So we have been talking to some of the the denominations, saying that can you come up with an idea that everyone has to undergo ECD training before they're getting married. You should have a pre-certificate. So it's and they're considering that one. I'm just telling you, we are working with them, because so that what happens is that they will raise the children in a more responsible way. So it's a very, very important. So we're also coming back to the ADB. ADB, in fact, has, thanks to Niti Aayog and also Department of Economic Affairs, in fact, we are implementing the first ECD project in the country with external aided funding. It's basically, the idea is that you invest on entire thing, including, as I said, mothers and, their, especially maternal mental health is also one of the issues. How actually the mothers are taken care of during the pregnancy period, and how actually we are going to upgrade this entire Anganwadi service centers into early childhood development centers, and how to provide extra help, extra support to the Anganwadi worker through the self-help groups. Basically, we are going to have this, in fact, on a rotation basis, not a permanent cadre, but on a rotation basis, how actually we can draw the young self-help group women who actually are graduated. In fact, we wanted a graduate volunteers to support in the Anganwadi center. So this is the kind of a work that what we have been doing. And as I said, this needs to be spoken a lot. I think most of our chief minister is also young, so he also has children. So why I wanted to say is that you need to really, this is such an important thing that you need to build that kind of a larger support towards investing in the children, and if and that's possible, and that's what we have been able to do. So I think I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. And I think you've both spoken about this need for a social movement, right? For a public movement, because of course our children belong to all of us, and we have to. I think everybody has a personal story of a child in their life that inspires them to take up this work. So would you like to comment on the public financing aspect of early childhood, and what are various ways to sort of contribute to that? Another question I had for you, sir, was, I think we've seen a lot of movement on Anganwadi centers in the rural context, but there's a huge missing sort of urban component of this model as well. So any thoughts you had related to that?
On the financing, I think we must remember that it is, a partnership of union and state governments. It's already a system in which we work together, and many states do much more than the minimum 60-40 component. So I think increasingly the state participation in terms of financing need not be always linked to that overall thing. It can be much, much more, and why not? So I call for a higher level of state allocation as well. Just as you heard from Meghalaya, Sampaji, that they have spending on health 8.6% of their budget. The average budget of the states is under 5% average. So 8 for a state is, saying that this is our priority. And similarly, therefore, all of us should improve and enhance our budgetary support from the system. But also, there has to be other ways of helping this process. And I think the civil society, the NGOs, the CSR funds, and everybody should chip in for a noble cause like this. And the ways of helping these processes should be found out, and engagement should happen. We should spread the good word. In multiple ways, help in cash or kind can come from other sources. On the issue of urban part, clearly this is a structural issue at the moment. We need a stronger presence of the ICDS system in urban areas. There are challenges, but then going forward, if you would have said what is the fourth idea, I would have said yes, indeed, let's catch up with the urban paradigm of integrated child development services and everything else that we have talked about in urban areas, and particularly focused on low resource population within the urban areas, wherever it is. It's not necessarily on the periphery, but wherever we should be mindful, because these children also need traction. Families are in fact perhaps even less time because they are engaged in vocation more often, not necessarily though always, but then in some ways. And we as a society should come forward to create a urban system which builds on what we have learned in the rural areas, but adjusts to the local context in different ways. Urban Anganwadis, for example, they could be 2 located simultaneously. There could be larger number of children wherever we can find space. There are issues about how to locate in very dense localities, but a way has to be found. And that's another space for innovation which should really come from all of you as much as possible. But as I said in the beginning, we must be clear what we want. We want our children to have great brain, great physique, great attitudes, to be great future citizens of India. And then that really, the work starts with adolescent girl, pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, then working with the child for nutrition, for brain development, for health, for protection, for security, and nurture. So वो सारा कुछ करना है, कैसे करना है वो हम रिफाइन करने की कोशिश करें कॉन्टेक्स्ट से और जो पीछे से सीखा है. But it is time to be ambitious. If you're going forward, we have done what we could, but going forward toward our goal of Viksit Bharat, toward our MDGs 2030, we should be ambitious, and with the ambition of doing what we should achieve, let's reposition, reimagine, and revitalize ICDS. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think that was a rousing call to action, once again, to everybody in the audience. And you're absolutely perfectly on time. Sampath, sir, your last word on what would your call to action be for this audience of, civil society, government, policy, some members of the media as well?
Thank you. In fact, I studied this subject at Harvard with Dr. Jack Shankoff. So there's an interesting course, Science of Early Childhood to Drive Policy and Innovation. So I tried to actually translate that one in my state. But so what I wanted to tell you is that this is something I would say the best investment anyone can make. As I said, it's 1:17, return on investment. I don't think any other investment can give this much of a 17 times, return. And more importantly, as Dr. V.K. Pal sir was mentioning, you remember, this is something makes everybody happy about it, everybody committed to about it, something like every child, every political leader, everybody would like to invest on it because you are investing on future. I think it has, in fact, this concept has got a Nobel Prize, I would say, in economics. This is something not many people are aware of it. So it's such a game-changing idea. And we have everything. We just have to connect some of the dots. I think the way Rocket Learning is trying to use technology to promote this entire idea. So like that, we have seen different organizations are there. I think like Aram that we have seen in Maharashtra, they have been doing extremely well in 0 to 3 space. Odisha is doing something very interesting, Anganwadi services, like, they are doing. So in fact, there is a need for coming together, like these kind of forums will be definitely useful. And in Meghalaya, we set up a Center for Developing Child in Meghalaya, again, to promote this entire idea, as to advocate this idea. So I think there is so much, joy to work in this space. So thank you very much.